You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The views expressed by the individuals during this broadcast are their own opinions, and they may not be the same as those of their group or other organizations they may be involved with.
All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net and 420pace.ca. And a good evening to Tamara. How are you doing?
I'm okay. Alan, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right. You know, well, winter's coming on, right? It's just gonna get real cold.
Right.
So, I'm sad to see the warm weather leaving.
Yeah, I'm pretty sad to see the warm weather going to, but knock on wood, we haven't had it that bad out here, out my way anyway, which is good because then it keeps the people that I help on the streets not so vulnerable. They are, but they're not. But they've also, we were able to get out for CSP this week and make sure they had some stuff and edibles and a little bit of smokable, and we were able to hand out some toques and some tents this week. Or some tents and some sleeping bags, and toques and hand warmers and a bunch of things. So it was, like I said, I'm grateful that it's not too cold because last year, because we've been going for a year now, this time last year, we were looking for propane and we were looking for hatchets and wood because we had 4 feet of snow. And the tents, we had a fire because of the propane. And so like this year we've got 3 different camps though. And I'm only servicing the one because the one that I was servicing last year, you have to have RCMP come with you now. And when you're handing out meds, I don't know if the RCMP would be too keen on that. So I'm going up to the other camp where social workers and nurses and drug testing is also, they go out there and they're safer. So we were out to be able to hand out, to the 27 this week again. Yeah.
Good. Still helping people. Perfect. That's what we're about, helping people. So.
Helping and educating, you bet.
Exactly. All right. Talking about educating people, here on the program, we like to be able to talk to patients and have patients share their stories, because when patients share their stories, other people can learn from that. And tonight we've got a guest. We've actually got 2 guests who we're going to be talking about, and we're going to be hearing about we're going to hear about 2 different patient stories tonight during the program. And I look forward to hearing the story and hearing about everything that these 2 gentlemen who are joining us tonight about what they are doing to help educate people as well. So, all right. You got anything to say before I bring them in?
No, just welcome James and Kim, and we can look forward to hearing from both of them.
All right. Well, as Tamara says, one of them, just so you know, one of them is a patient, as I mentioned. The other is a man behind bringing patient stories to the world. We'd like to welcome award-winning documentary creator Kim Saltarski of Amazing Entertainment. I got that right. And
you sure did.
And cannabis patient advocate James Tripp to the Pace Radio Show. Welcome, guys. How you doing?
How you doing? Good.
Yeah.
Thanks
great.
for taking the time. It's really
thanks for taking your time and coming on the broadcast and talking to us about what you're doing, as well as Kim, what you've been up to doing lately, as well as James, what you've been doing, and from what I've seen, you've been doing some terrific work, and I can hardly wait to hear from you what you've been doing.
Sounds good.
We're looking forward to sharing.
All righty. Well, Kim, to get started, why don't we find out about what you've been doing with Amazing Ain't It Entertainment, and how you've been, educating people about cannabis through that.
Yeah, well, I've been in the wacky entertainment industry for about 42 years plus now, and that's great. So I've got a number of skills in that arena. And then in terms of coming to understand the medical benefits of cannabis, I come through it honestly. Back in 2014, I was diagnosed with a very early stage melanoma 3B skin cancer from a little innocent looking mole here that after some surgery led to let it know was in my body. So through incredibly good luck, it was diagnosed very early, but the really good luck was I had a dear friend reach out to me and said, listen, I got this friend who cured himself of melanoma and lung cancer using medical cannabis. You should really talk to them. So, of course, being open-minded, and when you get hit with the sledgehammer of a cancer diagnosis, you certainly want to explore all options. And the options that were presented to me by the medical establishment were few and absurd in terms of their negative side effects that they were openly talking about. So, because it was early stage and it was nowhere in my body except they knew in this little lymph node it was circulating. And melanoma, as you know, is a wicked, wicked cancer, and you don't want it to go Wild West on you. So literally within 5 days, I was introduced to the Rick Simpson protocol that we all know from the granddaddy himself. And a friend of a friend selflessly showed up on my doorstep, said, here's some oil. If you source the cannabis, I will make it for you. I will teach you and all of that. So that was the most incredible blessing. So I went hard into the protocol, and by the fall I was on a maintenance dose, and I've been 12 years cancer-free, no signs of it at all. I've graduated from whatever program they have checking out on me. So that was a thrill. So as we know, cannabis isn't the cure-all, and I can't pinpoint that it was cannabis, but between that and the love of friends and family and a high purpose to live and a good diet and a good lifestyle, I've been rocking it. So that's great. So
would that be where you got the name Amazing, Ain't It?
No, I had that for a long time, since 1980. But it just got more amazing, which is great when you're alive and thrive. But what really struck me was just the selflessness of this community I started getting a glimpse of through this friend. And then hearing Rick Simpson's story and all that he did. So once I had my shit together and I felt like, okay, I can do this and I carry on with my work, it's like, how can I pay it forward? Because all these incredible people are coming to me without their hand out for money and saying, I want to help you. So from that, it's like, well, how do I pay it forward? And I have skills telling stories and all of that. So it's like, well, I should do that. And so soon after that, through friends of a friends, once the word spreads, I met Rob Mahey Sr. and Gary Palliser of Men with Dignity out in Meaford, and got captivated by their story. And then suddenly I'm shooting 26 days on there, making a documentary completely out of my pocket for the goodness of that. And while I was finishing that, I happened to meet the incredible Jack Kungle from Kingsville, Ontario. So then I created a documentary, Jack's Garage. Thank you, James, for wearing the t-shirt. And then I released Men with Dignity. And then I meet you, and then I meet so many other people in the community, and I meet Corey Yellen, and I do a documentary on her. And I keep learning, so it's a gift that I can give to other people. But then it's like, oh, you said that? Like, I'm sure out of tonight's conversation, we're all going to learn a little something from each other.
Exactly. We never stop learning. Never stop learning.
So thank you guys for what you're doing, relentlessly sharing and educating, because that's what we need to do. So, and I happen to be lucky enough to meet James, who is a friend of Jack Kungle. We met a number of years ago, and I heard of his story. And then I finally said, James, let me shoot you, tell in your story. And finally, he's been very patient. It was 2 years since I shot it that I just released 2 episodes with him. So that's part of my YouTube series called THC, The Healing Conversations. And I have more to come, and Jack's been on it and other people. So yeah, that's my little story. So I come through it honestly, and I'm thrilled to be part of this community and to educate people, to open their minds to the possibility should it work, and to help advocate to get the legality and the accessibility to this medicine in all forms it should be.
There's one of the people willing to give back. Good for you.
Yeah, there's no doubt your work has paid dividends to the community by spreading the education and spreading their stories. And tonight we're going to hear about James' story. Not only James' story, but a second story, which is his mother, which those two documentaries about his mother as well as himself. And I watched both of them, and yeah, I thought, geez, these got to get out. So over to James. Tamara, you got anything you want to say before we move into James here?
I just want to thank him for taking the time to document Corey Yellen.
Yeah, that was an awesome documentary. Yeah.
And she was always there for me. And I miss her doing it. Thank you for doing that.
Oh, you're welcome. And it was such a pleasure to come in
amazing
Corey's orbit and to spend an afternoon with her and Victoria at her place and get her story. And she just talked just like James. When people are focused and have a lived experience, I just have to roll camera, do a little bit of editing. And thankfully, I was able to share that. And that's got, a lot of views. And I get a lot of emails that people are saying, thank you for contributing to saving my life through Corey's teaching, through Jack's teaching, through James, through everybody that does it. So you're welcome. It was my pleasure. And
Corey was kind of a one of a kinder because she she'd been around it, but never really looked for the spotlight either, right?
Yeah.
It was a real gut punch when she passed away because like I said, it's like you talk to people one week and the next week they're gone. It's kind of like Michelle Rainey and Gail Quinn and all the warriors that have passed before me, right? Because I've been doing this myself since 2006. So you have to go back and think of all of the women that we stood on their shoulders, and the men too as well. Like, I'm not saying, but all the activists and all the patients that we've lost along the way due to the factors of and that's one reality you come to when you are using cannabis as a medical for medical is that you are going to lose friends, and it's a hard reality because you're working with people, you're signing people up that have cancer, MS, all kinds of chronic illness, all kinds of severe issues. And I've lost a few patients along the way, or with their RSO treatments and those kind of things too. So you just have to keep moving forward and never give up. Right?
Yeah, for sure. And we lost a very special human when Corey left us earlier this year. So I'm just grateful to have known her and the love and knowledge she spread tirelessly and relentlessly
around the world, not just in Canada, around the world. Right?
Yeah. So she's always in our hearts.
That's for sure. Hey, James, it's time to hear from you. You've been sitting there very quietly for the last few minutes.
I'm always eager to listen to other people. You can always learn something new from anybody. Doesn't matter who they are.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Okay, so it's time to hear about your story. You want to give us a rundown on whether you want to split it because you're going to talk about yourself and your
basically.
Mother. So
I can kind of give you a gist of how I got onto the medical aspect of cannabis, because I was a recreational cannabis user way back to my teenage years, right? Mm-hmm. When I got older into my 20s, it was spotty and stuff. And by the time I ended up going medical, I was smoking occasionally. I'd get a little bag for a party and stuff. I was a heavy drinker. I was not eating well. Had a lot of problems. And I think it was from digging a trench. And I got this kink in the back of my neck, and it just got worse and worse and worse. And within probably, I'd say somewhere between 12 to 18 hours, it was like having a red hot railroad spike nailed through the back of your neck and coming out my chest. I was just in agony. Long story short, I spent 2 weeks sleep deprived, barely able to function. I got to the point where I was trying to prop pillows up on the couch so I could get in a position where it wouldn't hurt. And as soon as I'd fall asleep and slump, it was like electricity going through my spine. The nerve pain was just astonishing. And so, I was chewing codeine tablets, and they were giving me everything up into morphine and all the other opiates and stuff. And that's what they were suggesting. And I was I can't do that. I mean, I've got friends in Kingsville that have gone that route from industrial accidents and stuff. And they're trying to still, some of them are still trying to get off the opiates, right? It's literally a monkey on your back, right?
Absolutely.
So I said, I had a friend of mine that I used to get my weed from, and he said, why don't you try some real good high grade THC stuff? I've got some. It's supposed to be good for nerve pain. So I thought, what the hell, I'll give it a shot. He brought a bag over, and I rolled up a nice one. It would have been a small one compared to what I do now, but I rolled it up. And I went into my bedroom, sat on the edge of the bed, and I started having a puff. And I got about a third, maybe a little less than a half into it. And the pain actually kind of shot up. And I thought, okay, wait a minute here. Maybe it's just that I'm more aware, because how when you used to get high, cannabis would heighten your senses and make you more aware and kind of make you paranoid and looking around and stuff. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to lay myself back on the bed and close my eyes and do some deep breathing and see if I can't relax and reduce the pain. Woke up 4.5 hours later, and I opened my eyes and I looked around, and I'm like, what the hell's going on? I mean, it was the most coherent I'd been probably in 7 to 10 days. And so I realized I was in my bedroom, and I kind of sat up nice and gingerly without moving my neck, sat on the edge of the bed, and I kind of moved a little bit like this, and it still hurt. There was a lot of pain, but it was like I could breathe. I mean, it was tolerable. It probably reduced it about 60 to 75%. So, any of these anti-cannabis statements put out by the medical industry that THC or cannabis is not good for pain is utter bullshit. Absolute utter bullshit. I'm living proof, because it worked on the spot. Now, I had a lot of tweaking to do after. So basically, I told my wife, I said, that's it. I bought an ounce, and it was a matter of, I had to do a lot of therapy. I ended up having discompression and damage on C6 to C7, and then some up at C3, and it's got nerve damage that comes down, still goes down the arm. It's kind of numb and tingly and stuff. But within 2 to 3 weeks, I was almost completely out of pain, and I was starting to function.
Great.
So smoking a little bit more, on a daily basis to keep myself going. Within about a month and a half to 2 months, everything else started to feel a little bit better. I remember one time I was in the kitchen, and I dropped something on the floor, and I leaned over and picked it up, and I went, whoa, wait a minute. I couldn't have done that before. I would have gone and leaned over and picked it up. So I that's it. I started researching then. That led me to ingestion therapy, which opened up the huge door.
Now, when you mean ingestion therapy, I don't people
eating
have
it. Yeah,
heard that term. I understand it's eating, but yeah,
smoking and inhalation is great, and it's a great application for nerve pain. There's nothing more instantaneous that delivers a nerve pain remedy than inhaling or smoking. It just gets it right in there, right? But for full medical benefit, it's shoving it in your holes, in your mouth, up your butt, wherever it's got to go. That's where you put it, right? And when I started eating it, holy mackerel! I mean, my gastrointestinal started to feel better, and because I went through bouts of several I was taking antibiotics 3-4 times a year for diverticulitis infections.
Yeah, so you got that on top of all the other problems.
Oh yeah. I at one point where the diverticulitis infection was the worst, I literally had to do Lamaze breathing exercises to get through the spasms in my sigmoid colon, because it was like just clamping down, and I was on the couch just breathing. And because honestly, the medical system was brutal at that point. I was diagnosed. Nobody told me to go on a clear fluids diet to make my colon, purge the colon and give it a time to heal. Mm-hmm. I go to the pharmacist and get all these heavy antibiotics, and he tells me to take it with a ton of food. So I'm eating like a pig and taking antibiotics, and my sigmoid colon is totally inflamed, doing absolutely everything I shouldn't have been doing. So that's when I realized, if I'm going to make myself better, I got to start figuring out what the hell's going on and how to fix it, right? And once I started eating it, I just started researching and learning more. I was only doing THC at that point. I finally got my hands on some CBD, started incorporating that, and opened up, every new methodology of application. I'm into topicals as well too. The topicals are fantastic for my spine, my knees, hips. So I'll do an alcohol spray that is made with 99% isopropyl. Spray that down my spine so it literally dribbles right down the spine. And then I put a cream all across my shoulders, my spine, my lower back. And that with some basic exercises and some chiropractic moves and some Qigong moves that I got recommended to me from Kim, I am functional. I can do things. I'm limited. I have to operate within my limitations.
Correct. Yeah.
But I can function now more by treating myself properly, using all the different applications of cannabinoid therapy, and operating within my limitations instead of pushing myself over the edge, having to recover, getting back up, pushing myself over the edge. I ran myself into the ground for years, and finally you beat your head against the wall enough, you learn your lesson, right?
Yeah, it's myself, because like I have Crohn's disease, but because of cannabis, I never used any opiates. I never had any prescriptions for them other than when I was hospitalized.
Yeah. Well, I did the same with my accident when I had my car accident.
Yeah. Well, you haven't explained that yet. You talked about all this nerve damage, and your story doesn't end there.
Yeah. It's
his story keeps going.
Yeah, it just keeps going.
Well, after I kind of got myself settled for that, but in 2021, I got hit head on by a King Cab pickup truck while I was driving a 2010 Prius. He was doing 90 and I was doing 90, and nobody hit the brakes.
It's 180 kilometers an hour.
But yeah, I describe it in the documentary. The force of that impact is something that I cannot. I mean, it's instantaneous, absolutely instantaneous. I hit the airbag. That's what I think busted my sternum. It busted a chunk out of my sternum, lower right-hand side, and kind of pushed it in about, half an inch or so. And it's just kind of healed now there. Busted a bunch of ribs here, busted my wrist, and I got a nice gash going down my head. But I was conscious the whole time. I saw the grill bounce back, and I literally thought, I'm done. I mean, I remember the thought went through my head that my insides are soup, right? Because I hit so hard, and I wasn't breathing, but I think I was in shock. And so I kind of moved forward a bit, and I took the pain, the sternum just shot. And I went, and then all of a sudden it hit me. If I can breathe, I'm still alive. And so survival mode just kicked right in. And I started checking my legs out to make sure I still had them, because the dash was right here. I mean, it was brutal. And I managed to get myself over to the passenger side, and they got me out, and things are a little fuzzy after that. The one thing I do remember is the cop kept asking me my name and my address and my phone number. And I got pissed off at him about the sixth time. And I said, "You've asked me 6 times. Have you got it yet?" And he says, "I'm just trying to make sure you're coherent. If you can count how many times I've asked you, you're okay." So, but
yeah, a big pickup like that and a Prius I would think that you would be almost like at that speed.
Honestly, I don't want to do an advertisement for Toyota here, but the safety cage in that car saved my life, and I kind of hit a little bit askew, and that it kind of crumpled in the side door too. That's what busted my ribs because it literally folded in my driver's door. But had I been in my previous vehicle, I wouldn't be here. I would have just been, the impact would have killed me instantaneously.
The unibodies, they just
Yeah.
So.
That's incredible. Well, thankfully you were in that car, and you're here to tell us that big story.
They put me on morphine. They gave me morphine in the IV, obviously, when I was in the hospital, and then he sent me home with 5 milligram morphine tablets. Right. So I took those for 3 days. I would take one in the morning, and then one to get to sleep at night. And then the last 3 or 4 days, I think it was about a week total, I only took one at night to get to sleep. And after that, it was all cannabis. When I got to the hospital, I was there and my wife showed up and they put my drug bag with me under the thing. And I said, "Is my drug bag here?" And she said, "Yep." I said, "Get it out." I had a bottle of THC in coconut oil and a bottle of CBD in coconut oil. And I said, "Just start slamming it in my mouth." So she was giving me an eyedropper about every 10, 15 minutes. And the doctor came in, she goes, "What are you giving him?" And I said, "She's giving me cannabis oil, so shut up." And he went, okay.
Oh, really, eh?
Yep.
Is that something that they would have said was, that it's not supposed to be in the room, that it should be?
Nope. Because my doctor was there at that hospital, right? So I think he told them, this guy has been doing medical cannabis for a long time. So if he's taking it, leave him the fuck alone, right? So I don't know, but they didn't say anything. And I had that with me even when I went to the London trauma room. So
yeah, I when I was in hospital, I saw them tell a lady that she couldn't keep her aspirins near her bed. They had to be.
They got policies where they don't want, and it's not because they don't want you administering it's because they don't want anybody else coming in stealing it from you, because they've got staff and other patients that will come into the room and steal it.
Yeah.
So that, like, I've got friends that were in the Tom Baker Center, and they were more than able to use their vapes and stuff while they were in there. They just told their families to bring them in and take them home so that nobody stole them. They didn't want to, they had no issues with them using them. They just didn't want them putting themselves at risk. Is what
it was. I had it was almost, I used to call it my drug purse because I put my wallet and everything in there. I had a ton of stuff in there. I mean, a ton of stuff. I had rolled joints. I had chunks of hash. I had oil. I had everything that I take. I was in there, right? So I'm sure they must have looked in it. The cop that took it out of my car, he just said, "This is yours, right?" And I said, "Yep." He said, "Here you go."
Thank you. Yeah.
So, but I think, I was absolutely not at fault in any way, shape.
Well, and that's maybe why.
I think that's why he didn't need to deal with that crap, right? Especially because I keep my medical license in there too, right?
Okay. Well, that's the thing I was going to say. Like, if you
and it's an ACMPR grow license, so
exactly. So ACMPR, they see that, they're like, "Okay, have a nice day."
I don't want it. Here, take it, get it out of here.
I don't want to deal with the paperwork. I'm so glad cannabis is legal now. Have a good one.
Oh yeah. Well, you should see the folder I've got that I keep in my car. That's all nothing but cannabis impairment. I've got all the studies, all the reports, everything that shows that this 5 nanogram to 2 nanogram stuff is bullshit.
Oh yeah, big time.
A lot of people do get psychoactive based on that low dose. They do.
Yeah.
Recreational users, not
in reality. What psychosis does cannabis ever leave any of us? Like, they'll feel this euphoric. psychosis that people get using cannabis. I'm calling bullshit. I've been
Yeah.
using cannabis for 40 years.
That's the one thing I always tell people is I say that
psychosis, like mushrooms, okay, psychedelics, yeah. Cannabis, no, I'm sorry. And the 70s show with the heads bobbing around on the wall, stop it.
Psychoactivity is just impairment. That's all that is. When they say cannabis psychoactivity, what that means is that it changes the function of the brain, right? And a recreational user who gets high experiences the psychoactive effect of cannabis. It's not a psychotic effect. It's a psychoactive effect. It affects the psyche. It affects how you perceive things. So that's what that means, right? So a recreational user who gets high will have, different perceptions and stuff. But I always say to people, it's, the only comparison to alcohol is both of them can get you high. Very, very different types of highs, very different reactions, very different responses. Most of the time when someone has an issue with screwing up being high on cannabis, they're probably also drunk at the same time. Yeah. And that's where it always gets mixed in. I always have this conversation with cops all the time. I'm saying, okay, I always nail them down. Are you talking about someone who's just on cannabis? Well, no, they were drunk too. And I'm like,
the only thing that gives anybody away with cannabis is they can smell it.
Yeah. And just because they can smell cannabis, or because you got cannabis in your system, doesn't necessarily mean that was the cause of the accident.
Yeah. I mean, for God's sakes, it could be CBD.
Yeah, exactly.
If you're smoking a CBD joint, it's still going to smell like cannabis, but there's no THC in it.
Yeah. All right. I see it's the bottom of the hour. We're going to take a break. Just so you know, as we mentioned earlier, Kim, you released 2 documentaries around James, and James was talking about his story. And what would be the particular name of his story when it comes to that documentary?
Yeah, it's James Tripp's cannabinoid therapy journey. And then when we come back from the break, I think we're going to hear about the incredible story of James helping his mother through an intense Alzheimer's end of her life.
Yeah,
exactly. You said it, and I don't need to.
I'll give you a break, Al.
Thanks. All right, you're watching the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at paceradio.net and at 420pace.ca. We'll see you in less than 3 minutes.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, welcome back to the show. Just to remind everybody, our guests tonight are cannabis patient advocate James Tripp and award-winning documentary creator Jim Saltarski of Amazing Ain't It Entertainment. In the first half of the show, the first segment, we talked a bit about Kim's situation on dealing with cancer and how he beat cancer with cannabis, and we talked about James' story, learning about his accident as well as his nerve damage and bowel issues when it comes to treating them with medical cannabis. And now we're going to move on to the second documentary that we're going to talk about tonight, and that's James' story about his mother's and dealing with Alzheimer's. James, would you like to tell us the story behind your mom and how you treated her with cannabis?
Yeah, so I was already pretty much well into doing the edibles. At that point, I was using the bud and, infusing it into olive oil or coconut oil or stuff like that, and making cookies and brownies and things like that, and experimenting with that type of thing. So, and we were dealing with Mom and her Alzheimer's. It was a nightmare. She'd gone downhill to the point where she was belligerent, argumentative, constantly coming over every 5-10 minutes. And it was a bloody nightmare. That day she'd made my daughter cry, my son cry, pissed my ex-wife off to the point where she wasn't go over there. I went over and she was nasty. And so I went back over and I looked at my wife and I said, fuck it. I'm going to give her a brownie just to shut her up so we can have some peace for an afternoon. Right. And so I got the brownie out, and of course I'm huffing and puffing. I'm like, okay, calm down a minute here. You eat one of these brownies and it's knocking you on your ass. This is your mom here, right? So I cut it in half, and then I thought again. I said, look, I'll cut it in quarters. I'll give her a quarter, and if I need to give her another quarter, I can give her another quarter. So I put a quarter in a bowl, a little scoop of ice cream, a little bit of chocolate sauce on it, and I took it over and I said, look, would you like a chocolate sundae? She's got her arms all crossed and she's just miserable. And when's my dad coming? I'm like, I don't know. Do you want a chocolate sundae or not? Yeah, fine, I'll have that. So I gave it to her and she scarfed it down. And I went back over about every 5-10 minutes or so just to check on her. And it took about 45 minutes to an hour for the first inklings to start to kick in. And I went over and she was sitting there like this, and she had just a little grin on her face. And I said, what are you doing? And she goes, watching TV. And I said, oh, good show. She goes, yeah. And she looked up and says, when's my dad coming to get me? And that would be the trigger. If I said, no, he's not, or I don't know. I said, I don't think he's coming today. He might come tomorrow. And she went, oh, okay. And I just went, are you all right? And she said, well, I feel a little giddy. And so I went, but you feel okay? And she said, yeah, I feel good. And I said, are you enjoying watching TV? And she said, yeah. And I said, well, would you like me to get you a drink? And she said, yeah. And she said, when are we having dinner? I'm like, well, would you like to come over for dinner? Yeah, that'd be nice. And I'm like, I turn around and going, okay, I'm going to get a drink. And I'm like, holy shit, who is this lady? Right. And so I went over and I opened the door and I said to my wife, you got to go over there. And my wife says, I'm not going over there. I said, just go over there and talk to her for 5 minutes. So she went over there, came back about 10, 15 minutes later, and she goes, what did you do? I said, I gave her a piece of a brownie. And she goes, holy shit. It's like two different people. We brought her over. That night she sat at the table, ate dinner, laughed, didn't quite understand what was going on, didn't care, wasn't upset. She could converse. Even the kids were laughing at her. My son was little, Josh. He's actually downstairs right now. And he was like floored. Like he couldn't comprehend how this woman in front of him was that woman that just made him cry over there and did so like for the last day after day for who knows how long.
This is one small piece of a brownie. One
chunk of a brownie, right? And so I'm like, that's it. I'm doing this. And I knew, I've got power of attorney for her because she's got Alzheimer's, right?
No, would that not be, being that you get the power of attorney and stuff, was there any legal risks to you?
I'm looking at going to jail for abusing a senior, for drugging a senior with illegal drugs. Right?
Wow.
But I'll be honest with you, our next door neighbor was Staff Sergeant OPP in Aurelia, and we were good friends with them, and he saw the whole medical thing. And his wife was an emerge nurse at the hospital, and she knew. They saw it. They're like, so I don't think I might have had an in there where, because believe me, I did.
Seeing is believing.
Yeah.
See it right in front of our eyes. Thanks to Kim for bringing these stories forward, so they can see them and hear from the patients right for themselves.
Every person that sees it and says, "Hey, you got to watch this documentary that he did on this." Every person that sees Jack's documentary that has cancer or knows someone that has cancer, every single one, even Corey's, all of them.
And now this one on Alzheimer's.
And the Alzheimer's is one of the big things that's coming up. I mentioned in the documentary there how everybody's touting this new drug that removes the beta plaque protein from Alzheimer's patients, right? This new fantastic drug that does this. And yet this drug has serious side effects. It can cause brain bleeds, inflammation, a host of other things, right? And yet I've got the two links to the Salk Institute in the United States that found in 2016 and 2022 that Delta-9 THC removes the plaque protein from Alzheimer's infected brain cells. No, that was never in the news. Nobody was touting that. Like it gets ignored.
Yeah. Anything you want to mention, Kim, that along the lines of James' story as he's telling it, that's in the documentary? Go right ahead, jump in here as well.
Yeah. No, it's great. And James, maybe you could discuss. So you had that initial euphoria and we're going to do this and it's illegal. But at a certain point in her story, she couldn't live at home with you in the nursing home. And that puts it in a whole other realm of complications.
Yeah. I did get her a legal script while she was still living in the apartment with us. It did go legal for medical. And I pushed it. And I had to push it so hard that I had to threaten her geriatrician that I was going to report him to the College of Physicians and Surgeons because he refused to give me just a letter of diagnosis for Alzheimer's. That's it. That's all I had.
I seen in the documentary, like you had to go at them several times.
I had to pound them. That was the thing that most of these people didn't realize when it came to me. I'm a bit of a stubborn bastard. And I can be tenacious when it comes to that, right? So, you know, I pushed it. I knew my rights as her power of attorney. I had the right to her medical records. And I said, if you don't give them to me, I'm going to file a complaint. And I had the letter in my hand 30 minutes later. So I got her a script. But at that point, it was just bud. You couldn't get oil from a licensed producer. All they were doing was selling bud. So I had to cook it into oil, which meant that when she was supposed to go into a respite home, they couldn't take it because it was a drug that had been altered from its original format. So I said, you're telling me that because I cooked this into oil so she can eat it instead of smoking it or vaping it, you can't accept it. So if I give you the bag of bud, are you going to do it? So luckily I found a home where there was a doctor doing a vape study at another home in Barrie.
Yeah.
He said, I'll sign off on these pills. I've never seen them in pill format. So let's try it. Ended up by the end of her stay, the home director brought in and the doctor brought in the corporate from that entity and lined up 5 Alzheimer's patients, including my mom, and said, all these patients have Alzheimer's. Which one do you think is the furthest along? They had mom pegged at the bottom and she was at the top.
Wow. James.
And so the home director was going, we need this. We need to pursue this, right? So that bug had already gotten in there at the corporate level, but there was so much issue with regulatory. I mean, it's got no DIN number, right? Drug identification number. It's not a singular compound. It's a host of cannabinoids and terpenes, whereas most of our drugs are what I call isolate and target molecules, right? And so they can quantify it, right? So a long story short, when mom did get into the home, I had to go through, I think 3 or 4 homes that refused her. And they wouldn't refuse her based on her cannabis.
Okay, I was going to ask you that. Okay.
Because they couldn't, right? They technically can't. What they said, most of them, and it was worded some way or another that came out like, we cannot meet her medical needs.
Oh.
So I finally got in touch with a woman who was a senior advisor for the Long-Term Care Standards Act. And she had a mother that she was treating with cannabis. So that was a great show. She said, no, they can't do that. So I filed a complaint on all of those homes. 3 of them got investigated. One flipped their decision, but by that time, this other Rivera home in Sarnia had accepted her because the doctor was retiring. He was going out. Screw it, I'll sign off. I don't give a crap. So they brought her in. They had to design a whole new corporate policy because this was treated, THC was treated like a narcotic. So came in the bottles. They had to have 2 nurses, 1 dispensing, 1 observing. They had to weigh the bottles before and after and measure the volume. And then it had to be in a special locked box in the drug cart.
Yeah, that's why I was wondering the other question about, bringing it into the hospital.
Yeah, it was tough. I forced the issue, but I still think I think that she's the first patient to ever get it dispensed by nursing staff.
As far as nursing homes now or care facilities for people with Alzheimer's or dementia, are they open to giving people?
Yeah.
Problem?
Actually, by the time mom passed away, there were so many other people in the home getting cannabis therapy that when the patient passed away, they just gave whatever was left over to the family. So it went from this big cloak and dagger thing of having to have 2 nurses watch the dispensing to, oh, well, she's gone. Here you go.
Yeah.
But it had been legalized recreationally by then.
Right.
All these fears and panics and, you know, a lot of the myths had kind of died off.
You know, there's the smoking aspect of it that I'm sure that they wouldn't be too keen on, especially inside the facility. Right?
There was most of the patients at the point where mom was going in that were self-medicating were using vaporizations. They would vape, right? Okay. So they had volcanoes or something like that, but they had to self-administer.
Now, I want to go back a bit. Was that Tamara?
I said Lisa Kirkman was one of the very first patients to ever take a volcano into an Alberta hospital in Medicine Hat. And she actually used my volcano, and we had to take it in and have it certified by Alberta Health Services, and it was safe. Yeah. And then she used it. And that was probably back, I would say, somewhere in 2010, somewhere back.
Yeah.
Before legalization, of course, but
the volcano was the first one that was certified, wasn't it?
Pardon me?
The volcano was the first one that was actually certified, wasn't it?
Yeah, because like I said, in Alberta, we had to have Alberta Health Services certify it for her to take it into the hospital.
Yeah.
That was like remedied by a cost, but that was a long time ago. But
wow,
I'm glad to hear that they're able to use them.
Yeah. Well, there's now studies being done by Lambton College up there specifically on the use of cannabinoids for seniors, right? Because if you go in, I got mom in the home. She was comfortable. She was secured. My job was done, right? And the one day I was walking out and I was just about out the door and I looked down and there's this old lady sitting there in the chair, just bouncing. And I remember looking down at her and going, shit, I can't stop here. If there's mom and there's her, they're all through here.
There's more.
So I worked at it at the seniors level for probably the next couple of years until mom passed away. And by that time, Lambton College was doing studies and there were other homes in the area. And I'd hooked up with the doctor came in, was a cannabinoid specialist, and he was writing all kinds for seniors. So it's proliferating now. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Before we go ahead, Kim.
Well, do you want to go to break now, or I have?
No. We still got 8 minutes before we go to break.
Okay. No, I was just going to say the other interesting thing, James, that you mentioned is not only were the benefits of medical cannabis for your mother to calm her, to make her interact, to make her joyful, but she also, once she went on it, started reducing all the other medications. Can you discuss that?
Yes, I was getting calls, quite frequently. She was on quite a host of medications, probably about 8 or 9, if I remember correctly. And I started getting calls, as the doctor would do tests. Oh, we're reducing this medication. We're reducing this medication. We're reducing it. And I kept chuckling, right? And he's going, at one point, I think it was the 4th or 5th one, he goes, is this because of the cannabis? And I said, yeah, probably is. Probably is. Yeah, most of those things probably are.
Yeah.
And he goes, wow, it's amazing. So, yeah, I remember she did have an accident and she broke her femur, which is bad. And at that point, there was no point in surgery or, she was so old and so frail. They just kind of fixed it up as best they could. But every time she had to go back in, they kept saying, oh, geez, her bones are healing fast for an old person. She was on a lot of CBD, and CBD promotes bone growth.
Bone growth, right.
But when I brought that up to her specialist, he's, whoa. It's got nothing to do with it. I'm like, okay. All right. Well, maybe she drinks a lot of milk then.
Talking about the specialist, as I was saying before we go to the break, talk about the experience of when you took your mother to the doctors and how she was under medication, and then you had to prove to the doctor that it actually worked.
That was the geriatrician that I took her to, that I had to fight for her diagnosis, because I had her on cannabis illegally. we went to the geriatrician because my doctor wouldn't, her regular GP said, no, I won't write it. You have to go to a geriatrician. So we went. He decided to put her on, I think it was mirtazapine, right? And I said, you're going to put her on this and it's going to trash her. And you want her to go off the cannabis. Yep. I said, okay, I'll make you a deal. If you put her on this and I bring her back in 2 weeks and she's worse, she goes back on the cannabis. He said, okay, yeah, sure. No problem. Sure. So I'm like, okay. I took her home. 2 weeks later, I brought her back and she was a mess. She was agitated. She was angry. Her arms were crossed. And I looked at him and I said, look what you did. I don't think that fits within your Hippocratic oath, does it? And he put his head down like this and he said, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That's right.
Go off the mirtazapine and put her back on the cannabis. And I said, so do I get a script? And he said, I can't write that. I'm not allowed. And I just, okay. So I got up and I said, I'm not going to try and fight him for a script. There's no point. There's no way. He just lied to my face. Lied right to my face. He's not allowed. That's bullshit. Any doctor was allowed once it went legal. Any doctor. So I said, okay, fine. I found a clinic. You know, at that point I had to pay a consultation fee and then, you know, they were making their money, right? But I wanted to go the legal route and I tried to get the letter of diagnosis and had to fight him for it. Once I got that, he dropped her as a patient instantaneously. Done.
Dropped her.
Instantaneously.
So I went to the clinic and I put her on the cannabis and the clinic doctor was,
and I hope you put a complaint in with the College of Physicians because I had to fly to Ontario from Alberta to get my first script in 2012 because my doctor gave me my diagnosis but absolutely flatly refused to sign my medical licensing because he wasn't allowed either. Yeah. Because the College of Physicians across this country are actively blocking our program since the very beginning. One thing we have to remember is that the doctors were never on board and neither was the government. We went to court and we fought everything. Every bloody court case that started in 1998 forward has got us where we are today. And we're still not able to access medical cannabis at the recreational level because the dosing is 2.5 grams per piece.
It is changing though. There are more doctors now that prescribe cannabis and are on board than there ever has been before.
Absolutely. We still don't have access as patients to it. That's the thing. Doctor can prescribe you. You still can't go to a licensed producer, even through the mail, and get 1,000 milligram gummy.
Yeah, you can't get the high scripts. Yeah.
Right? So
that's not the doctors. That's not, I don't even think that's the College of Physicians and Surgeons. That's our government is the biggest stumbling block.
But we do have a review, and we've had a review every 5 years. And the last time we had a review, nobody even went and put their opinions in. I think Alan and I said there's 750 patients that actually replied.
Something like that, yeah.
Well, the problem with that is everybody's getting it on black market. And this is one of the things I say in my documentaries is I always encourage people, if you are a medical user, then get registered. Fight no matter how much you have to, but you have to let your doctor know. You have to let the institutions know. You have to let the government know that this shit works. Yeah. And it should be in the mainstream. It should be the mainstream.
Numbers have decreased significantly. When we first were licensed back, 2012, there was 10,000 patients. Then we pushed. We got ourselves up to almost 50,000 licensed cannabis patients in Canada. And then recreational rolled us in the Cannabis Act. So at that point in time, people never felt that they were in need of, never mind the fact that the MMPR made it, we had to give our grow licenses away. We were sitting in an injunction. But to get a grow licensing, you're back to the whole shyster, $850+ for a licensing. The doctors were taking advantage of patients again. If you wanted a free licensing, you had to buy through Canamed or Tilray, through the mail. So even now, the taxation system still holds a patient hostage. The fact you can't actually get a tax rebate, debate, whatever you want to call it, unless you're buying from a license.
That's because Health Canada still refuses to recognize cannabis as any medical product.
That's been said since that's my. I stood up in a room. I've been saying that I'd say that every day for the last 20 years. Till Health Canada recognizes cannabis as a medicine, we are going to keep going around in circles till the day. And I stood in front of them and told them that. And they just looked at me like, eh.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was what I was gonna. That was one of the questions I was gonna ask you. You think Health Canada will ever recognize cannabis as a medicine? Because Tamara is always.
The government agencies will be the last institutions to do it. Every other institution in society will be fully on board before the government. But look at Schedule 1 in the U.S.
We're getting a lot closer because the doctors are seeing the benefits, and the young doctors that are coming out of medical school are actually looking at it as a different side effect. In fact, even more natural medical. Like, I've had doctors, like, I've been in the ER here and heard a doctor say, "Have you tried a cookie?" Like, and I was like, "Are you kidding me? Did that doctor just say, have you tried cannabis? It's legal, then you should go try a cookie." Like, I was sure.
Did you see out when back in 2018, before legalization went through, the College of Physicians and Surgeons had their meeting out on the East Coast, and they had all the doctors there, and there was a representative from the College of Physicians and Surgeons that got up, and his proposal was that the medical cannabis infrastructure and regulation be wiped clean and it just be folded into the recreational market, so like people could go buy aspirin at the store.
They did. That's absolutely what they did.
Over 50% of the doctors in attendance booed him off the stage.
Well, at one point we were sitting around round tables with the Veterinary Association, with the Doctors Association, the College of Physicians, lawyers, chiefs from First Nations, all wondering how this was going to get regulated to begin with, because of the fact that we had already a medical program running, and then they wanted to roll it into the Cannabis Act. So basically, patients were shoved to the very back end of the line again. And that's exactly where we were left. Again, when cannabis, the policies were written in 2014 at the Liberal Convention in Montreal, the things that we made very clear about the whole process is we had to look at the aspect of the baking and the edibles. And the government didn't want to see that. It took us months to even get that through when Cannabis Act was actually first even recreational rolled out. We weren't allowed any extracts in the stores. Quebec is barely just starting to allow those vaping and edibles allowed in the Quebec stores now. It's just barely kind of rolling out, right? But the things that were put into the policy and how the government rolled out that Cannabis Act was then rolled across the country, and advocates were able to get their 2 cents in. Now, they took smidges of it, a little bit here, a little bit there, but every year we've had to keep at them and keep tweaking and tweaking and tweaking, right? We've come a long way from the very beginning of this in 2017, and we're going to have to keep pushing at them. But unless we, and the fact of the matter, though, is the market prices for cannabis has gone down so benign that people have no real invested interest, because the bottom line is the dollar. I mean, that's how we pushed it through. We always said, we were in a room, Normal Women's Alliance of Canada, show them the money. You just got to show them the money. That's what I told them. You got to show them the money. And we did. We showed them the money, right? And that's how we ended up pushing this through. Never mind lying a little bit about CBD and this and that, a few other white lies we told about. Anyways, we were in those rooms. Pushing through these policies.
All right. Time for us to take a break. Time to hear some more commercials, hear from our sponsors, all that stuff. When we get back, there's a couple questions from the documentary that I have to deal with advocacy that hopefully both of you, Kim and James, can both talk about and answer as well. So you're watching the Pace Radio Show. We're live here at paceradio.net, 420 pace.ca, and we're talking with James Tripp and Kim Saltarski. See you in about 3 minutes again.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Camelford Lifestyle Shop, open Monday to Friday from 10 till 7 p.m. or by chance. Check out our flags, our t-shirts, plus our hats, and look of that supply of rolling papers, plus much more. We've got bongs and your favorite herbal vaporizers. Look at all the incense we have, as well as for those who collect knives, check out these knives in our collection. And while you're here, stop in to see Shay at the piercing room, where you can get poked by Shay. Daily deals, check them out. Camelford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford, Ontario.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420. Rerolled Saturdays. Check it out. Nothing but non-stop cannabis and psychedelic programming. Find it at 420pace.ca.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Hey, you're back with the Pace Radio Show, and we're back with James and Kim. Over the first two segments, we were talking about both of their stories, as well as James' mother's story with Alzheimer's. What I didn't find out during the second segment was the name of the second video. So, Kim?
Yeah, it's the James Tripp Cannabinoid Therapy for Alzheimer's. So it's on my YouTube channel, which is amazing, ain't it? And you can also link through it through the URL right there, www.thcseries.com.
All right, good stuff. Yes, very important videos to watch. A lot of education in them. Just the learning from the experience that James went through can help others. And so I've got some questions that from just basically general from both of them that I thought that would be important for people to know. And that was James. During the videos, you mentioned about trying to get the government to pay for the medical cannabis, and there was something to do with a lawsuit.
I would still like to get a class action lawsuit. Of course, I need a pro bono lawyer to do that. But what I did was, when she was in the home, I tried to file. I got the doctor to file a petition to fund her medical cannabis. There's a provision in the Ontario drug program for seniors for that you can petition for special drugs, right? Or, for special treatments and things like that to be covered, right? And there was no real valid reason for this to be denied, other than what I could figure is there's no DIN number or something. I don't know. But he said, yeah, sure, I'll sign that. Why not? So we, filled it out, and he sent it off. And I got a call at the home. They said, come on in, pick up this letter. The doctor wants you to see it. So I went and picked it up, and it was a flat denial. There's no way we're covering this. And there was even a clause in the bottom said, don't even bother filing an appeal.
Really?
Yeah.
It's funny.
So at that point, it's like, well, there's no point filing an appeal. So I put out the word on social media and stuff like that, and talked to a few lawyers and said, if you're interested in a pro bono case, or you got a young intern coming up that wants to bite into something that's good, but so far nothing. But if
why not petition them
it's still not
for
covered,
a DIN number like they do with the veterans? The veterans are issued a DIN number for the government to cover theirs. So why would it be so difficult for them to not issue the DIN number?
That's with the one for the veterans?
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a very good
my
point.
question for a long time.
Right.
If
So
you can do a
those
DIN number
veterans
for
are-
veterans, why can't you do it for everybody?
Right, exactly. And I've questioned that a number of times. If you can do it for the veterans, why can't you specifically give a DIN number to the patient? The patient uses that DIN number to qualify them for the government to cover them. What they've done with the veterans now too is because the market price of cannabis has gone down by $2, they're going to cut their allotment down by $2 as well, which is of no fault of the veterans. It's a cutback because of the market price of cannabis has dropped. Right.
Well, that's one of the reasons I got my grow your own is having to try and purchase from an LP is it's unaffordable. It's absolutely unaffordable.
Well, they've lowered, like I said, they've lowered the prices down considerably, considering like back when I was first licensed in 2012.
Oh yeah, it was horrendous back then.
Right?
Yeah.
And I was like, it was ridiculous. Anyway, but now, like I said, there's a way maybe we could petition the government for DIN numbers for seniors, for all patients, not just citizens.
Honestly, I think the only way I think we're going to get government to change is through class action lawsuits. We need enough people to get together. I mean, that's what John Conroy and they all the guys on the original one.
Right? That could be pulled. Like the only thing that saved us is that the Liberal government didn't appeal that court case. It's sitting in a BC Supreme Court and an injunction. So as long as you didn't need your prescription renewed, upped, or you moved, you're still sitting with an ACMPR, right? But 90% of those people have had to have a prescription renewal. They had to go into the new program, the ACMPR program, myself included, because we.
Yeah, I'm on ACMPR right now too. I have to do my grow license every year.
Now they're like, we had 20-gram licensings at one point. Now it's really difficult to get that.
Nothing over 5.
Because the government kiosked the veterans back in 2016 for allotment about money. When the government rolled them back to 3 to 5 max, they told all the college and physicians and doctors at that point, don't do anything more than that. They cut some patients back that have. It's really difficult. That's why I don't even bother anymore. I just don't.
See, the reason I think their illogical thinking around that is that point they were only recognizing cannabis for pain, discomfort, nausea. So the general bulk of population gets relief from that from up to 5 grams. But it's like I've always said to the doctors, you're not considering seriously ill patients, seriously damaged patients, cancer patients, MS patients. There's a ton of them out there. They're not the bulk.
They have the information.
But there's a good segment and they need to be addressed. Those people need to be able to get affordable access to whatever volume.
But that's the thing that they got now. Because we got recreational cannabis and there's access to it available to everybody. That's the
affordable access.
They don't care. All we ever asked for was access, right? We had to have access to the medicine. Why we had to be able to grow our own for access. Had nothing to do with affordability. That never was in the equation.
Right back to those early court cases.
Right? We've been through this.
But even at that, you can go get at the store. In Ontario, they have limits on how much you can buy, right?
Not really.
And you can't get real FICO. You can't. You get isolates. You get.
Oh yeah. Again, we all we asked for as patients was access, reasonable access, and they rolled us into the Cannabis Act in 2017, citing that patients were then allotted reasonable access, as well as we had access to mail out, right? So you were rural, you still could get it through the mail. You had access to a front store recreationally. We had access. That would be because John Conroy. We've had these discussions with John several times. When we'd have to prove that there was no reasonable access, and there is now. And that was our fight from the get-go. And unfortunately, that's where we're stuck in. Even the legalities of it, Supreme Court of Canada.
Yeah. The problem is
there are some
nobody really cares about the medicinal aspect of it.
Yeah,
it's all about recreational profit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. We're talking about
the more medical patients that actually use that, the more it supports that focus on recreational profit. Right.
Now, talking about the medical end of things, I noticed yet again during the documentaries that you were talking about information availability. And I'm wondering about, whether you could talk about that and how we can improve it, like all of it. all of you actually could answer that one.
The only time they ever recognize medical cannabis is when you're taking your sale. So if you're doing your, whatever it is in Ontario, here it's called can sale. That's when they decipher the difference between medical and recreational, because the recreational market is told to never allow yourself to give medical information because you're not a medical doctor. And that's where they draw the very strict line and recognize medical cannabis. That's the only time.
Yeah, I took the CanCell and the CanCell expert in Ontario just to see, right? And it was a very interesting experience. So actually, I had to admit there was a lot less misinformation and disinformation than I thought there would be.
I agree. I got mine as well.
And that's the thing. They have the information. They have the information.
Yeah.
It's rolled out right when they do these courses for people that not talk about medical. Just don't talk about it, right?
Yeah.
So they have the information.
But that goes all to liability and stuff. And I mean, that's one of the things I say about the doctors that do decide to write the scripts. If you're a doctor and you write a prescription from a pharmacy and something happens to that patient, you're covered by the pharmaceutical company, by liability insurance, by malpractice insurance, and by the College of Physicians and Surgeons. If you write a cannabis script, you're on your own. Period.
Yeah.
We know we lost several doctors for complaints.
But who's been sued? Who's ever sued a doctor for damage caused by cannabis? Has there ever been a case?
Robert Camerman lost his licensing in Ontario because of complaints due to patients saying that he malpracticed. But they rolled down and ended up getting
a patient complained, or who complained?
Yeah, betcha. A disgruntled.
His problem ended up where they took him to remove his license because he had signed so many licenses. He had piles and piles of licenses that he had to sign for, and he said in the Global News report that if other doctors would sign the paperwork, I wouldn't have to.
He wouldn't have to.
But he had also left the province when he was only licensed.
Yeah. I remember when I was talking with Mom's doctor, he was writing her script because she was getting it from a licensed producer, right?
Yeah.
And I went in to talk to him about getting a grow license because I was trying to see. I had somebody in Toronto that did it for me, but that was a long drive when I was living in Grand Bend. So I went in and talked to him, and he was honest with me. He said, "Look, my scripts that I write, they're mostly cannabis scripts, but I get reviewed more. All my prescriptions are under review by the College of Physicians and Surgeons more than any doctor in Ontario right now, right?" And he said, if I write you a script for grow, I can't tell them exactly how many milligrams of THC and CBD you're taking every day. So they're gonna come down on me, and I'm screwed. And I said, look, you've got all these senior patients that are your responsibility, and you are helping them within the bounds that you're tied into. I'll find my grow script somewhere else, right? Mm-hmm. And I understood. He said, I'm under the gun, right? I didn't want to put him on the cusp to write my grow script and put all these other patients at risk of losing their doctor because of the institution.
Right. Yeah, and it's like that in every province. It's not just Ontario. It's like that across the country.
Yeah, it is.
The veterans, in order for them to actually access their DIN numbers, they have to go to a physician every 3 months. They have to have their licenses reviewed every 3 months. They have to have blood work done. They have to have all these stupid things done if they want to access cannabis.
I remember when I was doing the stuff, you had to do a urine sample and all that stuff to make sure you're not taking all kinds of other drugs. Like what?
What got me off the hard drugs was cannabis.
Cannabis leads to higher drug use. Yep. You know how it is.
Make sure you're not drinking meth or smoking meth before you're coming in, right?
Yeah, I've got a question.
I do a harm reduction program, the cannabis substitution program. And I'm here to say that I have one patient, one of my clients, that was banging the safe supply from the BC government intravenously. She doesn't even use cannabis anymore. She is completely, absolutely drug-free.
Excellent. Yes. 2 questions. It's actually the same question I'm going to ask both of you, Kim and James. I'm going to go with Kim first. Now that you have released James' story and his mother's story, what's next? What's the future hold?
Yeah, well, I'm working on something really big and sort of the culmination of pulling together all my advocacy and promotion of cannabis and expanding it, and it involves veterans. So I've been working with Fabian Henry out of Sydney, Nova Scotia, and following his Veterans for Healing. Oh, marijuana for trauma.
Marijuana for trauma, yeah.
Wow, I recognize that. Yeah. So, wow. Yeah. So my partner Karen and I have been just shot 28 days over the last year and a half with Fabian and a ton of vets out Cape Breton. So it's called About Turn, Veterans Transforming Trauma. We're planning a big release at the end of the summer of next year, 2026. So that's the really big thing. And that's why I haven't released more THC episodes. I've been consumed by that and a bunch of other work I've been doing. I'm hoping I've got 2 other THC episodes I need to edit, and they might come out in the future. If not, I'm probably going to go dark for about 6 to 8 months and then come out full forces with About Turn. We're going to tour the country, and this is not only going to blow up again, illustrating the power of cannabis, the power of therapy, the power of community, the power of love, and show the unknown and unrecognized face of today's Canadian military and all that they suffer and all that they deserve to have justice and access to medicine and care. So yeah, and it's a story of positivity in terms of Fabian through his advocacy and getting PTSD and cannabis recognized he transforms trauma. So that's the super big thing. You can learn about it at aboutTurnDoc.com. So aboutTurnDoc.com. So yeah, I got some teasing and getting a community together there. So that's my big thing. And then as much as I can do, shining the light on James and other people, but I'm so busy. That's my big thing. So I've got 6 months of editing ahead of me. It's going to be epic.
It is. And the veteran end of things is large right now. A lot of talk about that in not only in Canada, but also in the U.S. And it's not only on cannabis, it's also on the psychedelics.
Yes, absolutely. And in my documentary, we show a full-on psychedelic session Fabian sat with. So there's a lot of great healing out there. Psychedelics.
I'm a psychedelic patient myself.
Yeah. Diet, right mindset, eliminating toxic people and things from your life. So yeah, so About Turn's coming and a few other things. And Al, you and Tamara will certainly know when I release it and all of that. So that's going to be.
I know some people on more than one network that would love to talk to you about psychedelics, cannabis, and veterans. So
okay, cool. Well, we'll be talking.
We'll talk after we're done here.
I love you're wearing the marijuana for trauma T-shirt. That's crazy.
With Alzheimer's, none of us are getting any younger, right?
Yeah.
So I think the focus on the geriatrics part of the whole aspect is a wonderful focus as well, because like I said, none of us are getting any younger. I think the cannabis is used preventatively a lot. They're saying that there's studies out there that showing that people that have used cannabis for a longer period of time have better cognitive behavioral skills.
Oh, absolutely.
That, the fact that it is preventative for a lot of cancer and a lot of other long-term chronic effects, right? And I think that we need to push forward on preventative medicine too for everybody.
Yeah. On the marijuana for trauma front, they had a office in Trenton, and I would go there and take Treating Yourself magazines there, as well as other stuff. They would hold educational courses there, whether it was on baking, cooking, all that stuff. And I interviewed Fabian at a show in Toronto.
So, oh wow! Yeah.
So
great. Yes, and Fabian's doing really well.
Good. Okay, James, you, what's the future hold for you? I noticed, like you talked about some lack of information availability out there, and I didn't know what you were looking at doing, pounding the pavement when it comes to educating people if you got any plans to do things?
Well, I'll be honest with you. I'm recently divorced a little over a couple of years ago and moved back to my hometown. So, I talk about it in a documentary. My activism, especially button heads with institutions and government stuff, cost me a lot, maybe even my marriage a little bit. But so I'll be honest with you, the last couple of years, I've been doing a lot of self-healing. I've been a lot of looking after Jim for a change, right?
Yeah.
I spent my life looking after a crazy household that was falling apart at the seams, including my mother and her dying husband and stuff. So the last couple of years, I've just been looking after me. Finished up, I was a patient on the Patient Advisory Council for the Dementia Surveillance Project. And they're just finishing up what's going to be part of a 20-year study on aging and genealogy in Canada. It's funded by Health Canada, and they're really focusing on Alzheimer's and dementia. And from what it looks like, it's I hope that in the next 10 to 15 years, a lot of these policies get implemented because it will change things dramatically from a diagnostic and treatment perspective and social environment, culture, everything. So I'm kind of a little bit on hiatus. If somebody wants to hear about my story or learn about how you deal with someone with Alzheimer's and cannabinoid therapy, it's not just the cannabinoid therapy. You have to know how to treat them, how to talk to them, how to keep them safe, door locks. You could write an encyclopedia on looking after an Alzheimer's patient, right?
Yes.
So I'm open to that type of thing. Whether
you thought about writing a book or like a handbook for Alzheimer's units across, like just to be able to put into like for the nursing staff or anything like that, like a memoir.
I did a pamphlet information package up when Mom was in the home, right? And that's the thing is, when you do that, you're treading across that line of giving medical advice, right?
Yeah,
so what I've realized is that if someone comes to you
it's different
and asks you a question, you can answer however you want.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But if you go and offer information, you're stepping over that line and can get in trouble.
Or you have the disclaimer that says, I am not a medical.
You should have seen
no medical training.
My business card.
The experiences that we have expressed, and we have patients' testimonials to share. So there's ways of getting around that stuff.
I had a huge paragraph on the back of my business consultant card, and I called it my ass blanket because it was basically an absolute denial of any medical knowledge.
Full disclosure, like I'm not a medical practitioner. I have no medical skills.
So if anybody said, "Oh, you're giving medical," I read the card right there.
And like we used to have the little cards that had our rights on them when you get pulled over by a cop. I don't have to talk to you. I don't have to do anything to you.
I've handed that satchel to 2 police officers when they've seen the evidence of cannabis in the car. And they've asked about it, and I'll give them my license and registration, and I'll say, do you want to take a look at this? And they'll go, what's this? I said, that's the documentation you're going to need for the questions you're going to want to ask.
Oh yeah.
And they look at it like this, and they go back to their car, and about 10-15 minutes later they come back and go, you have a nice evening, Mr. Tripp.
Well, history will tell you that I'm the only person in the country that ever walked out of a police station with an ounce of cannabis, because I had a license to possess, but not a license to mail it. And I got charged with trafficking of cannabis for 4 grams of cannabis in the mail. And you can now mail cannabis. You're welcome.
What is it? Up to 30 grams you can mail now?
This is before legalization. This is back in 2012. I did 6 months house arrest for mailing those 4 grams of marijuana.
Wow.
Well, I remember when I was doing my own crossbreeding and trying to breed my own strain that had a combination of THC and CBD, and I couldn't find CBD seeds anywhere.
No.
So this was way back. So what I did is I found a company in Spain, or an organization in Spain, that has CBD seeds. It was called CBD Lullaby, a real funky plant. And so what they did is they sent me a Spanish music CD with the CD in it in a case and a bunch of seeds in it.
Yeah.
Right? And so I grew that, and I had I got a male from that plant and a female from Northern Light skunk and crossbred them.
Nice.
Oh, I had a beautiful species.
Yeah.
I've got a bunch of seeds, but I don't know if I can get them to germinate. I'm going to try.
I've had friends that mailed hash from Amsterdam and seeds from Amsterdam, and the seeds got nailed, but the hash got through.
Yeah, I got a seed vault and stuff of all kinds of stuff. It's so easy now just to get, to get a decent mother and clone them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, once you got one you can keep cloning from. Like I've got a strain I've been growing for 15 years.
And we like it.
Yeah. Well, the guys that used to hang out they nicknamed me Old Man Janja, and that's what they called the strain, right? And everybody used to want to get it's that old dank, sticky, icky, where you roll it up and then your fingers stick together. It's that real.
And it gets all gooey and it sticks to your lips.
I've seen that for about 25. Oh, let's see, probably almost 40.
Memories, eh?
I got stories. Let me tell you.
All right, I see we're at the bottom of the hour, and it's time. I haven't said this in a while. Shout out time.
Wow.
Person, place, thing, websites, where people can find you, so on and so forth. The two of you.
Yeah, I'll go first. So THCseries.com is where all my main cannabis films are together, but there's also Jack's Garage, doc.com, mendoc.com, and also look out for my upcoming feature documentary about Fabian Henry and About Turn Veterans Transforming Trauma at aboutturndoc.com. And yeah, you can check out my YouTube site at Amazing Ain't It. Has all this stuff and more. I give away freely for people to share the knowledge and educate and share the love.
Thank you. I don't have a Jack Gungle Jack's Garage t-shirt, but I do have a grinder.
Oh, okay. Yes.
And I'm in BC, and I don't get any swag out here because I'm in the
Oh my God. Okay, we're gonna have to fix that.
Okay, James.
Basically, I'm on Facebook, but that's mostly just social media for me. Honestly, my big focus right now is I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm stirring shit up in industry forums, medical forums. But I do have a lot of really good contacts on there. Like I mentioned in the documentary, one of my contacts is the president of the Columbia Panama Medical Association, Cannabis Medical Association. So, that's where connecting with people that are making a difference on a global scale and trying to change government policy. Yeah. She just announced a month ago or so that Columbia has now insurance companies have to cover medical cannabis in Columbia.
Nice.
That's great.
We need to catch up. We need
to catch up with the world. I mean, to be fair, we were the first G7 country to actually legalize cannabis.
We got a long way to go.
But we have a long way to go for medical cannabis, which we've had since 1998. And I think that's the biggest problem that bothers me the most, that we have access and have had access to this information since 1998, and we have still let the patients down.
Yeah. All right. Other than that, anything else?
No, just big thanks for having us share some wonderful time.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
It's a pleasure being on your show. Thank you very much.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, because it's great to have the sharing of the information. It goes a long way.
Exactly.
That's good. Yep.
And thanks go to our sponsors, the Camelford Lifestyle Shop in Camelford, Ontario, Limestone City Hydroponics.ca. My order should arrive tomorrow, by the way. And at ease.ca. Huge thank yous to our guest, patient advocate James Tripp, as well as documentary creator. I don't know, what do you call it? Producer? Creator?
Everything. I'm Mr. Everything.
I went to your Facebook page to see what you called it.
Yeah.
I saw the word creator, so I thought, okay, I'll use that. And as you mentioned, Amazing 8 Entertainment. Check it out. And Tamara, thanks for everything you do. Plus, to our
Wishing out.
listeners and watchers, thanks for tuning in the program. And good night. We'll see you all later. Bye-bye.
Have a great night, guys.
Take care. Thanks.
Let's share PACE everywhere. That way it can help create peace. People everywhere advocating cannabis education.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.